This is for Mill Street LLC. I hereby move approval of this final site plan and special permit. The applicant is Mill Street LLC at 244 Mill Street. The application is to enclose an open area underneath an elevated patio and increase the interior floor space to be used for retail uses. The commission finds that the ZEO has reviewed this and signed off on January 23rd, and notes that the space already had 3 walls, that the full enclosure does not add any FAR. The application has a DPW exemption. The sewer department has no comment, and there are no further outstanding comments from staff from departments at this time. The commission, however, notes that this additional space shall be used for retail storage only. And with that, do I have a second?
Second.
Andy beat it. All in favor? Aye. Okay, may I have the resolution to approve the minutes? Or deny the minutes, as you may feel.
Mr. Levy.
Oh.
You need to make it.
Why?
Because Nick's secretary, he can't hear. And I wasn't here.
And you weren't here.
Oh, so I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 7th, 2019?
Have those been signed?
No.
No.
They're drafted.
Oh, so what are we doing then?
I thought only the ones that have been signed by.
Let's start with here.
Okay, all right.
There's 3 here.
All right, the minutes of January 7 have been moved for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Mr. Fox has the second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Levy?
I move to approve the minutes of November 26, 2019.
Wow. November 26. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Yeski seconds. All in favor? Hello?
I move to,
Hold on a
We
second.
need more votes.
We need a few more
Yeah,
votes.
one.
We only had one person vote. All in favor?
aye.
No, just the people seated tonight, which is Goss is seated.
Goss for Mac Ryan.
Goss from, yes. Okay. The next one, please, Mr. Levy.
Let's see. I'd like to call for approving the minutes for December 10th, 2019.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? That was, I think, yes, he
Goss.
seconded. Yeah. All in favor? Aye. Mr. Levy, do you have another motion?
No, that's it. There's only 3.
Okay. There are 2 other items noted here for decision items, and those are not going to be decided at this time as the commission wishes to consider the matters further.
Madam Chair, do you mind
Yes.
if we go through the postponements and just to
Why don't we do that?
pigtail on your comment there? That
So
means
the
that
following applications have been postponed. Stephen P. and Maria Muzante at 30 Sunset Road. The application of Adam Gray and Carrie Miller at 198 Shore Road, and those are the only postponements I have. I said that already.
And just to re-clarify that we're not voting on the second church tonight. The second congregational church.
Got that, Mr. Cohen?
Will not be voted on.
Nick wasn't sure that you knew that, right? Okay. Nick wasn't sure when you didn't stand up and bolt out the door that,
He's for the field.
oh, yeah, I know, but Nick said, make sure the audience understands and. Yep, okay. So we now have to wait 10 minutes.
We do.
I'm good with that.
Can play Jeopardy.
Dun, 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 dun. All right. What do we have in this cute little pile?
Yeah, Spencer, clean ones. I don't know why they were in mine.
I don't know. I just handed mine to Nick and say, this is your problem. Okay.
Did you give that to Bruce Cohen?
No. But he knows.
I know. Michelle's out of town, so just trying to be nice to him.
You don't have to be nice to is the, so Patrick, just to ask you a question, so the field club sent in. Was the Chocoilate, the accident at Chocoilate, what kind of vehicle was that? It was a Ford Taurus, so not a truck.
No, that photo was of a truck after the crash.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. And did they ever find out what happened to the guy? Was,
He was coming home from a shift at the Veda Wethermill, and he crashed.
It's a very old book.
wow.
Or maybe it was a problem with the car.
No idea.
Could be. Well, they'll do an autopsy. So they'll know if if he had a heart attack or a elevated blood alcohol or something like that. Yeah. It's now 7:15. We're going to begin the public hearing. This evening, Mr. Hardman is absent, and on this application will be seated Ms. Goss for Mr. Hardman and the regulars. The first application that we will hear is Young Pioneers LLC for a final site plan and special permit at 59 East Putnam.
We're still waiting for our attorney here.
That would be Mr. Hagney?
No, Mr. Haslam.
Oh, Mr. Haslam. Okay. Well, I suppose, Mr. Cohen, would you like to have an early night? And okay, so we will go to the next application, which is the Field Club of Greenwich for a final site plan and special permit at 276 Lake Avenue.
Evening, Ms. Evelyn, members of the commission, Bruce Cohen representing the Field Club. You'll recall from our last meeting that the Field Club...
I'm sorry, just a minute. You were seated on this, you seated yourself again?
Yeah, right now.
Okay, so Mr. Yeski was seated for Mr. Hardman at the last meeting, and Mr. McRae has read in and wants to, and is taking Ms. Goss's place. Did you agree to that with Mr. McRae? You can punch him. Okay, so Mr. McRae has read in, and Mr. Yeski continues to be seated. Okay, sorry, Mr. Cohen.
And I still represent the Field Club in this application to modify an approval that was granted in 2014 to build a new indoor tennis court at the northern end of the campus. As you will recall, it's still a tennis building, a two-court tennis building covering what had been three asphalt tennis courts. So the club is losing one court. The building is essentially the same size as the one that had been approved in 2014. It's about 60 feet further away from the northern boundary in an effort to centralize the activities in the middle part of the campus. And as a part of that, the existing four paddle tennis courts are being relocated again toward the center and adjacent to the new building.
Now, Mr. Cohen, the last time we heard this, we left it only that you go back to ARC.
Right.
And you now have a do not return from ARC, and you have submitted your data to the sewer.
Yes, we have submitted, we've gone to ARC, and Nella Kernan from the architectural firm of Rogers McCagg is here to talk briefly about that and where we've left off with them. There was another design issue that was raised by one of the commissioners at that hearing, and that was for the club to make an effort to move a parking area from the western side.
Correct.
A little further to the east, and that has been accomplished.
Great.
And so the design issues, I think, are under control. The issue about the sewer division has not fully been resolved yet.
Well, as I understand it, you've turned in your flows.
We have.
And having, she's laughing because she didn't understand why we had to do that the last time. So you have the flow data in, and what we would do is if we closed and were to decide this, we would just condition it that if there's an issue with the flow data that you would have to return, but that otherwise, that you have met the requirements and that otherwise you would go ahead.
That would be a
Okay.
perfectly acceptable condition. Would you like to hear a little more about the ARC, or I'm seeing no? Then
I think if you will tell us the bottom line, what the commission whispered to me, because I missed the briefing, was that that they've all read in and have been and are pretty clear on where it is. Does anybody have any comments? Do you want to know about the ARC discussion?
If you remember, you had some clear directions to the ARC
Yes.
relating to fenestration, relating to the roof line, and
the color.
and I believe they took those issues to heart. They had a couple of design points, which I would call not as significant, which they would review with the construction documents, which is perfectly fine with us. So unless you have some specific questions, maybe we'll rest.
No, actually, I think what I'm reading from their minutes, it seems that actually they just used significant language to tell you to make larger corner boards and line things up, that kind of stuff. So I would actually just say that actually when you're ready to go, the condocs submitted and get that rolling with ARC so they can have an opportunity to see.
We intend to do that, yeah.
And I appreciate moving the parking so it faces the building.
Well, when you first mentioned it, it was something we hadn't thought about, but when we thought about it, it turned out to be a good idea.
Especially when you have the neighbor that it was facing had some concerns. I think it just helps the overall site plan.
We agree.
Anybody else? Questions, comments?
We're talking beyond ARC or just ARC?
Everything, anything you want?
No, we ended the last conversation on a discussion about noise levels. And I think the conversation went something like, in a prior ruling, there was restrictions on noise and lighting and all that sort of thing.
Right.
We went back and looked at the 2014, and indeed, I think the 2014 actually says
No amplified sound.
no amplified, and
We were very clear on that. And we would intend to retain, we discussed that with Mr. Cohen, that we would retain those provisions.
okay. So there's no issue of that? Because it seemed to me the last time it ended on, like, there was a question about that.
Spent time with the club, and they considered that, and they accepted.
Okay.
There's also a restriction in here about everything closing at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
That's
Okay.
acceptable. There were two conditions, Mr. Yeski, that we wanted changed, if you remember. One had to do with the new landscape plan, in
Right.
place of the old landscape plan, and the other had to do with lighting on the building, and we do, on the north side of the building, and we do need, under the code, to have lighting above the doors and garage doors, so, but they will comply with the trespass regulations.
Yeah, I thought there was an issue about the noise ordinance and the decibel and all that, but if everything's been accepted, great.
So unless you'd like to hear from Ms. Kernan, we'll sit
Those
down.
lights that you're required to have are motion detector based?
Malik Kernan with Rogers McCagg. Yeah, we have some exit doors that are on a lower level. They're below grade in the
to be lit.
ramp, in the service ramp, and they're exit doors from the tennis courts. And so they're required to have, they can be on motion detectors, yeah. Yeah, there's no problem with that.
Okay, so you'll just need to make notes. And then all the conditions from the previous decision stand. Okay, does anybody have any more questions? Is everybody, do I have any comments from the public? Nope. Okay. Is everybody agreeable to closing this application?
Yes.
So we'll close it. Thank you very much. And so now we will return. I don't know, I don't think we should make him go last. Poor guy. We'll return to Young Pioneers LLC, which is our fourth application, for a final site plan and special permit at 59 East Putnam. Good evening, Mr. Hanslin.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Thank you for the courtesy. I didn't realize you were running so quickly.
Well, you were the first item on the, oh, of course, you wouldn't know, yeah, we had two postponements in the regular meeting. I believe, so normally I would ask you, since several members of the commission are very familiar with the prior applications here, but perhaps Ms. Goss and Mr. Lowe would like to hear some background.
And I have a handout in that regard, too, that I think might be helpful.
Okay.
Certainly.
Do you by any chance have with you the original site plan application, the original site plan that was proposed when this building was first torn down and rebuilt?
I do.
Do you have it in big?
I do.
That would be good. It would be great if you could walk through the changes in regard to that. Did you represent them the last time? I don't remember it being you.
I did.
You did.
2015. Yep. And it was a long process, but ultimately I think it turned out. Sorry about that. Chip Haslam from Johnson Haslam Hogeman for the applicant.
No, this is not the original. This shows the. Hold on a second.
This is the original floor plan approval, which ultimately the commission decided that the best way of figuring out the parking for this was to consider it not to be retail food, but rather have it be part designated to retail generally and part designated to restaurant. And that's the way the parking was calculated at that time.
It's funny. That's, yes, okay.
That was Mr. Maitland's suggestion, if you remember.
I do remember now.
That was the way we,
Made the parking work.
yes.
Correct, with the 20 spaces.
The issue is seats. Right, because
This is good.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, so what Mr. Maitland's concern was at the time that we originally reviewed this was about the parking. And so this got changed so that the parking would work.
Correct. And that was after numerous hearings,
Because
if you
there
remember.
was a great deal of concern about lack of parking in that whole area
And I think
and
anybody
no place to overflow.
who's visited either the florist, that building was also owned by my client, next door, and the deli when it was open, and now it's a dry cleaners, I think you can see visibly that it's much improved over what was there before as far as how the parking works, getting cars off the post road, et cetera. And in addition, by the Chun's now converting the front from the deli to the dry cleaner, dry cleaners take, they do not require nearly as much parking as a deli would. It's relatively insignificant amount of traffic they get in and out of there each day relative to what the deli use was previously. So ultimately what was decided, as I said, this building's been used in conjunction, and there's 14 parking spaces that are assigned to the building across the way where the flower shop is, et cetera. And then there's 20 that are actually on this particular piece of property. We also indicated, although it's not made a condition of the approval, that we had two spaces in excess on the other property that could be used in conjunction with this property, and it's worked very well, basically with the parking going back and forth depending on the needs for that particular lot. So the business model for the deli didn't work as well as the Chuns had hoped, and they've been in the business of dry cleaning for many years and decided to open up another dry cleaning establishment at this location. Without using me, they got administrative approval from staff last year to convert the front of the building to a dry cleaner and have the remaining space used as retail. And the proposal now is they have a restaurant, Sushi Soba, which is in Riverside currently, would open up another location at this space. And initially we had, as you can see from that floor plan, there was 1,800 square feet that was designated as the retail use and the balance to be for the restaurant use, and at that time. So that gave, we're currently coming in with is having the cleaners at 1,617 square feet, which is roughly 200 square feet less than what was set aside as retail before, and have the restaurant use at a little over 2,095. So in fact, it can make the parking less non-conforming, if you want to look at it that way, because the retail square footage is reduced and the number of seats for the restaurant remains the same. We had in the prior approval 16 approved seats indoors and 10 approved outdoors in the front here, which are going to be year-round, and those were made part of the calculation. So you figured we had 26 restaurant seats in total, and that the parking was sufficient for those purposes. What the Chuns are now proposing is to eliminate the outdoor permanent dining space and just have the 26 seats rather in the new restaurant space, which would be to the rear. And it somewhat makes sense too, because the outdoor space obviously is not contiguous anymore to what the restaurant space would be. So it doesn't make as much sense to have that exterior, although they'd like to maintain the right to come and ask for seasonal outdoor seating from the commission at some later date. But so it really is an even swap. It was 26 seats before, it would be 26 seats now. As I said, as a practical matter too, the dry cleaning use takes a lot less, there's a lot less parking and traffic than there was for the deli use.
Because of the 10 outside and the 16 inside, but now you're proposing 26 inside and another 10 outside.
No, we'd eliminate the 10 outside.
But that's not what our staff report says.
I was hired by the Chuns about a week ago, and
Okay, the
discussed
staff
this.
report says 26 indoor seats plus 10 outdoor seats.
We are now proposing to eliminate the 10 outdoor seats.
Okay.
And that came up in the briefing yesterday too, and I passed a note up to Pat indicating that that was the proposal. So I think that resolved the concerns in that regard, but there was a miscommunication, I think, as to what was proposed with regard to the outdoor seats, which I clarified.
How many seats in the original proposal?
26.
16 indoor and 10 outdoor.
And that was calculated as part of the parking equation.
Now, on this one that I have here, you're not showing the outdoor.
Right.
So,
That's the handout from the 2 minutes ago.
You just cut it off.
yeah, hold on a second, because this should be in here. So here, what it says in the decision letter is 20 indoor and 10 outdoor, or did we reduce it?
I'm pretty sure it was 16 in and 10 out.
It says, whereas the site plan shows, whereas the floor plan show a new delicatessen-style restaurant with 20 indoor seats and 10 outdoor seats, used year-round.
I'm looking at the August 18, 2015 final decision letter. In that letter, it says, whereas, shows
July 29th, I am at.
oh, this is August, that may have been the preliminary.
Got it. Okay.
It shows retail food / restaurant use of 16 seats indoors and 10 permanent outdoor
Got it.
seats outdoors.
Okay.
I'll take the 26 though, if you.
No, I didn't
30
remember.
rather.
Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so that was the reduction that the commission made the first time.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And then the calculations given there is how they got to the 20 parking spaces. So I think it's a wash.
You actually need 25 technically.
But they're giving up 10 now. They're going to give up the outdoor.
Your non-conformity comes down to just +1. You have 20, or proposing 26. You're,
26
you need,
seats,
yeah,
right.
you need 25. So, okay. I
Right.
think it's working out, and the 10 seats outside
Go away.
go
Go
away.
away.
If you do come back for seasonal, then we'd have to take something out of the inside.
Whatever you'd have to do, I'm just saying down the road, that might be a possibility,
Well,
but we would eliminate it now.
But one of the things, it'd be helpful to see the outdoor dining space, because taking them away and not putting landscaping back, we really don't have any control, nor do we want Pat have to drive by every day looking to see if people,
I can do
for
that.
some reason, cheat and put outdoor seating, even though they don't have the approval. Nobody would do that. But I think it would help us if you reduce that patio area.
And one of the things that, to support what Mr. Fox is saying, we clawed our way to a couple of trees when this first came in. Right now, as you're probably aware, the first selectman would very much like to see, and we also have a task force that is working on planting on the post road. So supporting Mr. Fox, it's in the POCD. We would really like to see if you're not going to be using 10 seats outdoors, that you do some planting. I think it's a fabulous idea.
So would you suggest that we come up with a landscape plan, come back one more
I
time?
think we'd like to see the whole package.
Okay.
It's cleaner. We've gotten ourselves into a bind.
Right, I'm aware of some of them.
Where we kind of say, yeah, and then it's not fully baked when we look at it. And I would like to see the whole package. And just FYI, according to, the selectmen's also working to get that park across the Post Road cleaned up. So I think this should be part of that as well.
I used to call him when he was a state rep and ask that it be mowed because it was left to. Right.
They're actually
Yeah.
working on it.
We're
Yeah.
working on all that.
Neighbors want to take it over.
Well, do you think we can get on, could I get back on before you the next hearing and not go to ARC, but just come in with a landscape
I
plan?
think you could just work with us. Mr. Leroux, can you get in the next meeting?
Would you be able to provide us something before the 25th?
We want something very simple from you, really. Just a couple of trees. Does they have any site plan that shows? No, we're gonna ask. What I wanna do is. Yeah, so, and they would be really pretty. Yeah. You know? We want to-
That was our thing. That's the old one.
They have not put these in.
That's what I don't.
Go to your GIS.
Mr. Haslett? In our briefing, we have a landscape plan from Environmental Land Solutions. This is back in July of 14. Okay, it shows the patio and the landscape plan and 3 mature trees or 3 trees to be planted on the at the street. I don't know if you're aware of that. That might be the place to start.
Yeah, I think we can build off of that.
I think you never put it in, to be honest with you.
I'd be surprised if we got to see if we didn't, but the design's enough.
That
But
looks like it, I don't know what it is, but.
I think the 3 trees are there. I just think they're not as robust as they're drawn on the plans.
Okay. Does your client know what they planted?
I don't think so off the top of my head. But what we'll do is, he's a little concerned about having trees that are too large to block the entry to the front.
Got it.
I'll work with him on making sure there's
Here's
low
the
plants. that are-
trade-off, because we've been talking about this as we talk about the landscape planning for the Post Road. When the trees get tall, you're going to see the street facade, you're going to see the facade perfectly, and there'll be beautiful shade trees on the patio. It would make it an incredibly appealing place to sit.
It's in front of the dry cleaners.
But it's still a nice place to go out and sit. No, I mean, it's still a nice place, and you can still come out, you can take your food out there, that's their idea, that's why they want to have outdoor seating. So it would make it nice, so there's a short amount of time where the tree would block your visibility. We've been talking about this on the Landscape Design Task Force. There's a short amount of time where you lose visibility, but then it would come back. You have a tall enough tree when you start, you're all set.
Let's see what we can work with.
So see what you can do.
I'll go back to Environmental Land Solutions and
Yeah.
see what we can come up with.
And
But I'm hearing too that you're saying like you might want a bench or 2 out there as possible as well.
if you're considering doing outdoor seating eventually, it'll be great. You could close down 10 seats indoors and move them outdoors.
Okay.
And I think we would be very amenable to moving 10 seats or whatever number you would like, moving them outdoors.
Okay, I'll work with the landscape architect and my clients and see what we can do.
Madam Chair, I just, not to be a downer, but.
Sport?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about all the outdoor dining applications that we've done, and service outside would have to be from the restaurant in a direct manner. It
Could be
wouldn't
takeout.
You wouldn't be able to go through the front door to do service. So if anybody was thinking to do tables related to the restaurant. Here, it would have to be takeout only, I guess, or
Right.
or the,
Right, that's
you know,
better be the case.
Yeah.
your clientele would be happy to put it in a box.
Which is
and
what it
eat
was
outside.
originally, really, it was really a
It really
deli.
was. It was takeout, and plus, because of its location, I don't think they're really want to provide service.
I just don't want anyone to go with unreasonable expectations.
Understood.
So.
Thank you.
No, we don't have unreasonable expectations.
All right, I think we can get this back to you by the 25th.
Okay, good.
Landscape plan, so let's come back.
Yeah, and you're
Great.
giving us a real plus if you're making it more attractive from the street.
Good. I mean, I think that hopefully the commission feels that this is a great improvement over what was there before. I think the Johns did a really nice job with it, and I think
It's
it works.
the building is lovely, but it's still a concern about the parking, and the parking was just a concern because that's a tight area.
Right.
But the building is certainly lovely, and they've done a beautiful job with that building. Yes.
Good.
Mr. Haslam,
Ah, you got it. So these are
that
the
information come back from the
trees.
sewer department. I guess they got a letter from Wilton Plumbing dated yesterday that the grease trap was cleaned.
Correct.
The sewer department actually has questions about new sinks, et cetera, that are shown on the plan.
There's no,
Okay.
nothing new in the basement, and there's no apartments in the basement.
Right,
So that
yeah.
was just a misunderstanding.
I think what Mr. Feminello was looking for, to make sure that actually anything that is new or removed, so he has a record of what's being intercepted by the grease traps.
That's fine.
Something else
Yep.
to work on, get that done.
Yep.
And I would think actually, I don't know if you guys have started a review application with the health department.
Yes,
On the new restaurant, then we can get that buttoned up as well.
that's fine. Yep, we'll follow up with that.
Okay, great.
And the signs have been, the grand opening sign has been taken down, as well as the open sign.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope, we're good.
Good. Thank you all.
So we'll leave this item open. Does anybody from the public, thank you for reminding me, does anybody from the public wish to speak about this application? Young pioneers? No? Okay. So we will leave this application open. Okey-doke. Our next application is 240 GA LLC. And this is for a final site plan and special permit at 240 Greenwich Avenue. Seated on this application, Mr. McRae, have you read, you're seated for yourself? Is that correct? Yes. And Ms. Goss, I suppose, is okay with that? And Mr. Yeski continues to be seated for Mr. Hardman. So it's Albin Goss, Albin, McRae, Levy, Fox, and Yeski.
We're here, I'm not sure of the outlet. Minor point.
Is 1205 East Putnam here? Ma'am, we can't talk to you about it until the applicant comes up and opens the application. Patrick, we have no applicants for anything. Would you like to present
I
something?
would not. Thank you. I am trying to locate Mr. Tessie right now. Mr. Haslam is here. He just need a few minutes to organize himself if we wanted to jump to the next one. But
To 1205?
Right. So I guess
What is with people tonight?
I don't know. It's weird. It's like a Freaky Friday kind
I
of
guess
thing.
they didn't want to sit, they didn't want to wait for us? Yes. I'm waiting, I still have to wait for an attorney to show up.
That's Tessie.
1205 is Haslam.
No, I know.
Yes.
240 is.
240 is Tessie. And it's a very quick one.
It is, so why don't we go ahead, because we're hoping it's quick again.
Go ahead with what? We need an applicant.
12:05.
But I need the applicant for that one, too.
Oh, Chip's not here either.
No.
He's in the hallway. He's trying to
He's
get his.
coming.
He's closer.
He just
coming.
needed 5
But
minutes
that's
to.
why-
Contest, who comes in first?
So, so that's why I wasn't doing anything, is because I didn't have an applicant, okay? I mean, I know that,
Like, we had one applicant out of 6.
oh, I've got the resolution done. You could have given this one back to Goss, 240. There's no reason for you to be seated on, but, okay. You're being a control freak, you know that, right?
Madam Chair, I just got an email
No, it's
that Mr. Tessie's en route. So
Okay, so we'll go ahead, we'll find, don't worry, Nick, I'm just giving you grief, just,
But there's no objection to skipping over them and going to 1205.
No. In fact,
Over each one till one of them gets here.
in fact, we're going to make him wait till midnight.
I mean, you know, that's the problem by televising this.
What's that?
It's rare for first at P&Z.
This is a first. In all my years, I've never had this, but it's always good to have new things happen. Oh, Mr. Haslund, how nice of you to join us. We're really very grateful because we were waiting for any applicant to show up.
So Victoria's still.
No, for you.
Yeah.
No, that's not what it says here.
It is 12:05.
Oh, 1205, yes. Okay, so on 1205, it's Albin, Macri, Levy, and Goss. Okay, Victoria? Then seated for Mr., no, who is seated for Hardman then is going to be Yeski or Lowe?
Me.
And Macri read himself back in, but then we need someone to seat for Hart. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do Albin, Lowe, Levy, Goss, and Macri.
Okay.
Okay? Got that, Pat? Pat, you got that. Albin, Lowe, Levy, Goss, and Macri. 1205 East Putnam for a preliminary site plan and special permit. And so everybody knows this application is a must close tonight. This application is must close. Mr. Haslund, thank you very much for agreeing to go early.
Thank you. As I said, the timing could not have been better with my client having just walked in. For the record, Chip Haslund from Johnson, Haslund, and Hogeman. Andy Toth is the principal in this project, and he's behind me, and Andy's going to run the slides, hopefully. As indicated, this is a preliminary application. It has to be decided tonight. We've kind of run out of time between going in front of the commission and then going in front of ARC too in a preliminary, which is somewhat unusual, but we did do that as well, if you recall. And in our last iteration, what we tried to do is there was some indication from the commission that you wanted us to create more green space and recreation area, and if we could smush the building, even if that meant that we had to go up to the 47.5 feet, which would be permitted under 6-110. I think, I'm sure you indicated that you were, Mr. Macri wasn't at that meeting when you floated that idea, and as you anticipated, he was not particularly fond of it when it came back. So we went back to the drawing board again, and this is from the commentary in the last hearing before you folks, and we brought the buildings back down again. So, and if you could share the red line. We removed the half story on the top altogether, and which brings it down. We can't quite get under 40 feet as we discussed possibly doing, but we can get ourselves to 41.5 feet. So it's basically 6 feet lower than what was previously proposed in our last iteration. And we've also reduced the square footage of the building from 23,328 square feet to 21,550 square feet, and gone from 20 units to 18 units. FAR is reduced from 0.893 to 0.825. And the lot coverage is reduced from 0.782 to 0.693. By doing these things, though, and creating the greater recreation area, we've reduced the number of parking spaces, which we also discussed as doing as approximately 1.7 spaces per unit. So we have, where we originally had 40 spaces, regular spaces, we now are proposing 32. If we had to, we could create other spaces in that recreation area, et cetera, but we'd rather not, given again that we're on the transportation line. And the other point too I'd like to make is the fact that under your regulations, as you know, if we had retail on the first floor, say hypothetically of 5,000 square feet, and then reduce the number of units to 10, we would only need 35 spaces to comply. So, and we have always thought, and we're encouraged from the beginning from Katie, to not have retail on the first floor. We thought it would be better for the neighborhood, and better for traffic concerns, et cetera. So hopefully the commission can see to allowing us to have the reduction in parking spaces. As I say, all other changes that we've made, I think, are responsive to what the commission has suggested, with the exception of one, and that is digging down for the parking garage. I wish Charlie Mills could be here tonight. He's our engineer. He unfortunately has the flu, as does his whole family. And when I spoke to him on the phone today, it did not sound good, the noises in the background that young kids were making. And Charlie has spoken with Scott Marucci in detail about this, and Scott and Charlie both believe that it's ludicrous to dig down in the site. It disturbs your ability to properly drain the property. There's also a very high water table in this location. And if you had to pump, which is really the last thing you want to do if you can avoid it, you would have to get permission from the state to go out and pump it into the sewer system out in the post road, or find some other solution of getting the water off of this property, which is practically impossible. So, as I say, I wish Charlie could be here because he was pretty apoplectic about this concept generally, and the amount of disturbance it would also cause. And I think when Graniff was here with us a couple meetings ago, they indicated that they had done a study of it, and as a matter of the topography and the geometry of creating a parking garage, it just didn't work. I think Scott spoke with Pat today about this a bit, and maybe he can opine on that, but our indication is that there is no way in a million years that the engineering department would find that acceptable solution to this problem, but I did not hear that directly from Scott.
Madam Chair, I did speak to Mr. Marucci today. He did describe again that he talked to Charlie Mills, Mr. Mills, and what I won't describe it as him saying it was ludicrous, but I will say that to push it once I'm going to do my best to explain what Mr. Marucci explained to me, but once the parking garage gets pushed in the ground, it ceases to be a surface lot and it becomes a structure, and then has to be treated differently under engineering. So there is definitely significant changes that would have to happen to the drainage system that he couldn't tell could or couldn't be met, but it changes the dynamics of the sheet flow and the drainage characteristics that this design has, because this has permeable pavers and some other things that are good measures, but would not be able to be made use of if the parking garage was pushed down and essentially became part of the basement and was no longer the parking lot for the site. So that's probably a poor job of explaining what Scott said, but that's sort of the layman's version.
What we asked, what we discussed yesterday, I believe, it was a suggestion, because in the past we talked about, can we put this parking underground? No, we don't have the turning radius, we don't have the water table, all these concerns. We discussed yesterday if you could put it down 5 feet, 6 feet, not necessarily sink the whole thing underground, but some portion of that. And what I heard you just say, I didn't hear you provide an answer that addresses that specific thing. I heard a blanket statement that it's ludicrous or it's impossible or whatever. But I would like to hear a response to the suggestion of some effort to drop this down a little bit, and what specifically the impact would be at whatever levels you were talking about, rather than just say, no, that's not going to work.
I think the problem, Mr. Lowe, is that once you do that by any measure, you trigger what Mr. Marucci is talking about, where you add a whole nother layer of drainage requirements. And my engineer looking at it and discussing it with Mr. Marucci is saying, you can't do it on the site. You can't do it. That's basically what he's saying. And I don't know how else to, I think he kind of verbalized that the last time he was here, but he nonetheless went and met with Mr. Marucci and talked it through with him as well to try to understand, is there some way that we could possibly do this without having this all kick in, where the greater requirements would necessitate pumping the water somewhere out of this garage. So once you go below the grade level, you run into that problem. It's not a question of degrees necessarily, as I understand as a layman. It's all or nothing, pretty much. That's what the problem is. Now, we've lowered the building by 6 feet from what was last proposed. So you're concerned with bulk and height and those things. Hopefully that's been reduced. It was suggested, I think, by Mr. Macri that perhaps we could lower the ceiling of the garage from 10 feet to something around 9, 8, 7 or something. And I think that's something we can look at as we go further with our design. But at this point, being preliminary, we're hopeful that you will not require us to dig down or go further in that regard, but rather maybe look at other alternatives as to reducing that appearance of the garage. And I think maybe Mr. Macri's suggestion is the right way to go, is to bring the ceiling down a little bit. That may require us to find spaces for handicap outdoors rather than indoors because of the van heights and things like that, but we can pursue that further.
I think it would be useful to know what specifically, Patrick, what these onerous additional requirements that are being imposed upon the applicant if he or they or.
But they're somewhat hard to define right now because there's no proposal. So if there was feasible alternatives provided that could be evaluated, we could give you a better answer. It's somewhat difficult to totally outrule the idea of a parking garage. But it does sound to me from talking to the town's engineering staff that it would be a significant amount there would be a significant amount of issues that could make it not feasible. With that said, I don't know, and the question that we had talked about at the briefing on Monday was whether a slight change in grade, a depression of a few inches, less than 3 feet, if that would trigger that sort of change in the drainage manual, and I do not have an answer for that.
And it's not a level grade right now, is it?
No, the site is not level now. It would be leveled and built upon more. It's
right.
A little. Yeah, I mean that's the general gist of the site design, but I don't have a response from engineering that says that is or isn't feasible. But I think that's maybe what the commission is still asking. Perhaps even just to get to that 40-foot number that we're looking at is that 24 inches of depression on the parking lot. Right. Does that net the change from the measurement to the roof? That's
Mr. Haslam. Part of the confusion is that when you look at the elevations of the site, it goes from 99 down to 94. So we want to understand, is there some way to get to kind of find something in between, or is there some way of mitigating that elevation, even partially in the garage? So I mean, that's just like to kind of understand that. I appreciate what our staff has come up with, and I know that they know what they're talking about, so I will certainly abide by their suggestions personally. But nonetheless, it would be kind of interesting to just really understand the impact of, there is a significant dip right in the site. So isn't there a way to take advantage of that somehow?
Well, inasmuch as this is preliminary, and Katie waived the drainage requirements that we are somewhat onerous to try to do the testing, et cetera, and the design features. But if we were to go to final green light with you folks, I'm not saying we would rule that out, and we would pursue that and expend what we would need to expend in order to satisfy you that it can or cannot be done, or satisfy us that it can or cannot be done. But at this stage, just from a preliminary look at it, our engineer is saying that he thinks it's a practical difficulty. And he's saying that's what the town engineer thinks as well. But we can look at it in greater depth if we get to the green light to go to final.
We suffer from not being engineers and not
I do too.
Well,
the other thing I want to ask you about
he's an engineer.
So,
I don't know if it's suffering.
The other thing I would ask you about is the permeable surface. I'd just like to understand it a little bit better because it's very interesting. And how does is it all about percolation? Is that the only thing that makes it work, or are there other issues that need to? Because when you have a permeable surface and it's outdoors, there's a lot of different factors that are working on
This is it. It's not a regular walk-in.
the removal of water. It's not just percolation.
It's evaporation.
They must have done.
So I'd just like to understand how this surface really works. Is it just percolation? Okay. And is it the entire, it looks like it's the entire garage, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, the driveway and the garage are permeable surface. So that decreases the amount of drainage facilities that you need because it has a natural absorption to it, which you don't get otherwise. It's still treated, even outdoors, as coverage under your zoning regulations, as you know. But for drainage purposes, it's a great resource to be able to have that. So
how new is this? I mean, because I've never seen it on this.
It's been developing. I mean, I've looked at various products over there. I remember coming in front of the commission 25 years ago when Grass Pave was first coming out and explaining that.
But in the interior of
And
the
I
garage?
remember the long discussions we had about, about those. Okay.
So that's the issue. With the permeable paver for your ground, it needs X number of feet above groundwater. So if you push this design down,
Here, this is your.
you can't use the permeable system. And therefore, they'd have to redesign their entire drainage system. I haven't read the test data, but I think it is preliminary. And I think I'm not seated on this, but the people that are need to consider height and bulk and the trade-off.
Hi, Andrew Toth, applicant. Since I've developed, and stormwater management seems to be one of the most important things in even doing a single family. So we did try to lower the building 6 feet in height, so hopefully that helps to lower that, and we might be able to pick up another foot or foot and a half when we get to construction in the next phase. The other thing is, by lowering this, I know from doing sewers in certain areas, the sewer department avoids any and all possible pump stations, right? So one of the things that Scott and Charlie discussed was if we're going to lower this and we're going to get further closer to the groundwater, and you have to remember the catch basins in the road that do the stormwater management have what we call an invert. So we have to raise that belly up to get enough permeable surfaces underneath so that the outflow will go into those. Otherwise, we'll have to be running very expensive pumps that probably wouldn't keep up in large storms, is what I got from Charlie and Scott this week. So that was the other thing. The other thing is, Mr. Fox, I'm sure you know because you're an engineer, you take stormwater management, you're going to take an area, and you can't just sheet it all out at one time. So what we have to do is kind of collect it, store it, and it goes into various chambers where it builds up and then goes into an outflow pipe to prevent just massive water going into a 3-foot catch basin all at one time.
We're not capturing for big enough storms, but we'll deal with that when the drainage manual changes. So there's a trade-off, and people have to think about.
Now, what happens in cold weather when the ground freezes? Does it not freeze underneath the building, and therefore you still get percolation?
I don't have an answer for that. I'll ask Andy if you just know.
Same thing if you
Andy kept them up.
If you do what do we call Coltex, the town used to have years ago where we used to put 40 of them in a space like this big area with gravel and filter fabric, and we'd throw everything into it, then we'd raise up, go into a chamber, and then out the chamber. It's usually 24 inches below surface, so a lot of times it doesn't freeze. I guess if it freezes, maybe there is no outflow.
Well, the thing is that it doesn't rain when it's below freezing. So
probably not.
I mean, the only times we've gotten severe flooding when we've had an abrupt shift in temperature from way below freezing, and then suddenly it's rained, but normally you get a more gradual change, and so you have some ground thaw, and then the ground absorbs. I mean, because
Yeah, a lot of times
we have had some cases where the ground's been frozen.
Excavating in the winter, once you get through the 4 inches of topsoil and you scrape out about 12 inches, you know, the ground is usually
55.
perfect. It's when you
We're
scrape
getting
off
down the
that
rabbit
4
hole.
inches.
We're getting
Rabbit
too
hole time. That was
too
rabbit hole time.
granular because you would be putting trench drains to pick up your driveways.
Okay.
And so that's not the main issue.
Okay. Any other questions from people? Nick?
I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Lowe.
We also discussed yesterday, you've reduced the number of units, correct?
Correct.
Down to 18. If you're only proposing 3 as moderate income, that falls below the 20%. And we discussed the possibility of requesting 4 to get us up to the 20%. Were you there? I don't know.
I was there. Yeah. And I think it's funny. I've never read that section the way Pat read it yesterday, and upon second look at it, I think he's correct that I don't think you can go below the 20% under the way the regulation is written. So I would leave it to the commission, but it would appear to me, if you read that literally, that it would require 4 units to be set aside for moderate income. Andy, could you live with that?
We kind of haven't.
Stand up.
I thought we had kind of an agreement when we were at the last meeting to go forward and come back in from 20 and 4 of those being workforce affordable to 18 and 3 with the other reductions in the requirements, closing off Neil Lane, reducing the height of the building, creating more green space. So I was not aware of this statute that it's maybe so direct, but.
Well, it's 20%, but we indicated to the applicant that we would round up in order to get the building smaller. We said we would meet, at the hearing, we said we would meet the applicant part way in order to get the building smaller. Just telling you, you were here. Reminding you?
Well, Madam Chair, I think
Doesn't mean I have
if
to
that
agree
was
with
the
it.
way, I mean, obviously the commission has the right to interpret the regulations. I was just reading the regulation and asking if that's plausible. I mean, it seems to indicate that when you're not at 20,
You wouldn't get the incentives.
yeah.
My recollection was, again, that
But 3.6 would be what you would require at 20. So it just depends on how you round.
Well, at 3.6, wouldn't you be rounding up?
Right.
If it was 3.5 or less, that's down.
I would probably go up.
Yeah, that's the accountant's rule, is to go up from a 0.5.
I'm not an accountant, but I would agree with that.
So we indicated to the applicant that we would be flexible with that at the time.
that was my recollection, but
I remember that as well.
Well, we could check it with town council, but
okay. I mean,
before we go to final, we'll double check it with council and make sure that. The other thing is that you're not going for the max incentive.
We may not have.
So that would give, as I read the regulation, that would also give us some flexibility because they're not going for the max incentive under the regulation either. No, but it doesn't matter because it says the commission may.
Right.
Right, we're reducing the height to almost where we're within the regulation without incentives. We're
Right.
reducing the FAR. We're making,
Right.
we're conforming in all other aspects.
So let us double check it. I very distinctly remember that the commission was saying that we were open to being flexible on the units.
That's what I recall too, but as I said, I think it's up for the commission with council to determine how it's read.
Yeah, I don't you know, if I may read it, it just says the Planning and Zoning Commission may consider a fraction to be a whole number to meet the requirements that not less than 20% of all units are moderate income dwellings.
There you go.
So, you know, again, you are the interpreter of your regulation.
Okay. Mr. Haslam,
Mr. Macker.
good things happening, closing off Neil Lane with the fence, putting in a drive-off for the fire department.
Right.
So we're actually going good direction there. I'm still having significant difficulty with the engineering, but understanding that the engineering has not been done yet. There's lots to explore there. I think something to keep in mind and relate to Mr. Mills, that he's got a catch basin down the street that has, let's see, I think there's the RCP going into it is at like 91. So it's actually downhill of the site, so overflow can go in that direction. And at the middle of the site is at 95, 94. And the upper end is 99. So there's some elevation to work with there. Understanding if he's putting in the permeable pavers, he's going to have to actually have depth to that.
Right.
Okay. It seems actually we're grading up a lot to get that depth in without disturbing things, but I think that's a significant exploration to have, because I think it actually will help you scooch as much as you can out of it. I appreciate what you did with the roof and how you've brought everything down. I think there's significant more development in the architecture. I'm seeing two different things at the same time. The elevations show one thing and the plans show another.
Again, we would develop that, but
if anything,
at a time.
The elevations themselves actually probably have some more or better detail to them, showing balconies, those kind of things. I think our significant issues would be the north and south facing Neil, facing the post road, those two. And specifically what the design of the plinth, the garage is. It's kind of thing you're actually indicating some kind of a residential feel and materials, fenestration, roofing, that kind of stuff. I just want to make sure that it's not going to be sitting on top of cast concrete that's just parge coated. The standing seam metal roof actually I think may help, but I think, as like I said, front and back is quite important to us. And then the landscape plan. I think actually one of the things actually to remember as well is that actually the balconies are on the east and west. And personally, I don't think I'd want to be living on the east side of this, looking out my balcony onto the roof of the adjacent building, if you know what I mean. I think actually, as you noted, I would actually go as far as you can to actually understand if you can get the ADA spaces out of underneath the garage, then you can actually gain an awful lot of headroom there, because the garage itself doesn't need to be that high. 8'2" is for the van, so if you can get the vans outside, you can go down a lot more.
Look into it.
Because what we've heard and what we're telling you is that the height of the building is significant, and wherever we can cheat a few inches, that'd be great. I would say even to the actually floor to ceiling heights inside. Understanding 9 feet is what everybody likes, but it's an apartment building, so. Let's see. I think actually, understanding where we are, I'd really like to see some more of the architecture develop, because I think that's what actually the neighbors and a lot of the people who live around us are actually very concerned about. And I think Mr. Mills, sitting down with a very sharp pencil and actually understanding what's existing on the site, which he has here in his set, in terms of the catch basin that's down the street, the elevations, those kind of things, is really, to sharpen the pencil, take a really good hard look at what he's going to do for his drainage, and be creative with it. So, but as I said, you did some good things. Bringing that roof down is great, and the fence in the back on Neil Lane and moving it away. So, I think we should be. For me, we can move on. That's I guess that's my comment.
Okay. Anybody else?
Just want to reiterate the importance of getting the residential street facade right. I think you've done some very good things. There's a nice small gable facing the residential street, and then just so the roof line seems quite much more balanced than it has been. So that's working pretty well.
Good.
Just looking forward to seeing this all drawn up and seeing what it really looks like. And of course, again, that this plinth, the articulation of the plinth should be just as interesting and residential, perhaps, as the rest of the building.
Well, I think, as it says in your staff notes, the intention of the preliminary application is to get guidance from the commission, and I think we've certainly gotten a lot of guidance from you, and I think we made some inroads being responsive. So we are hoping that when you close this matter tonight, that you let us go forward to final.
Before you do that, I'm going to get comments from the public, if you would.
Thank you.
Would people from the public like to speak?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. When you come to the podium, if you have handouts, you can give them to us now. Otherwise, you look like you might. That's the only reason I'm saying it. And
These are pictures.
okay, don't say much till you identify yourself and all that. Just, you can leave them with me, and then I'll hand them out. And then you can say your name and why you gave us the handouts when you get to the mic, and then I'll share them. And you just, for the court reporter, you just have to say who you are and everything.
And I need to tell you that I am very hard of hearing.
Okay, I'll shout at you.
Hearing. Good.
No problem. Your name, ma'am.
But I may have missed and
Okay,
not
so
heard
we'll make sure. No problem. Just your name, please, ma'am?
Yes. My name is Barbara Goldberg, and my husband is Stan Goldberg. And with the bank, we own 21 Neil Lane, and that is the house right next door to the Rogers property.
Now, ma'am, you have just handed us 5 photographs.
Yes.
And you're going to explain what those photographs are.
Yes.
And you understand that when we're done looking at them, they'll stay with Mr. LaRoe as part of the public record.
Okay.
Is that all right with you?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So go ahead.
We bought our house in 1992, which is 28 years ago. We renovated it and made it into a 2-family home. Each year since then, we have worked to upgrade and enhance our property, always planning how our house would fit into the residential setting of our neighborhood. And I should jump in here and explain that we have 2 sump pumps in the basement of our house. And we have always had a problem with water in the basement when there is a prolonged storm or a very heavy storm. So when we bought the house, there was 1 sump pump, and it came a time when it just would not. I mean, we were pumping water out of that basement, and it was just flooding in. So we hired an excavator who excavated the side of the house and found a broken pipe coming from the Rogers property under our house. And he did that during a drought. And there was running water in that pipe during a drought. And that's what those pictures show. And there is one photograph that shows how he built something beside the foundation of the house. But first he put sort of black tar or something black on it to seal it, and then he built a structure and filled that with cement to try to stop the flow of water into our house. And even though he did all that, a year later, he had to come and sink another sump pump in a different area of the basement. And still, we have water. Okay. Stan and I are retired, and we rely on the income we receive from rents to supplement our retirement. The developer is focused on dollars. Somewhere, someone said, every inch means dollars. That comes at the expense of the neighbors, their pets, and their children. There is an economic gain for the people who wish to develop this property. However, this should be weighed against the social costs and economic loss to our neighbors in our community who will gain nothing but have a lot to lose. An 18-unit apartment building will generate noise, congestion, and traffic. In today's world, most residents own 2 cars. 2 cars per unit would mean many more cars added to our already busy intersections. But more importantly, with the access and egress onto East Putnam Avenue, in order to get to East Putnam Avenue traveling north, or access to I-95 north or south, people would exit onto East Putnam, travel south to Neal Lane, and then drive on Neal Lane to the intersection of Park Place, Riverside Commons, McDonald's, East Putnam Avenue, or I-95 north or south. There would be a lineup of cars on Neal Lane waiting to access the intersection that is already so congested. And I think it's the busiest intersection in Greenwich. Health and safety have always been important in Greenwich. There have been more than 77 accidents at this congested intersection in the last 3 years. Although the addition of more cars may seem to not make a difference, the likelihood is that more cars will result in more accidents. There will be an economic loss to our neighborhood and an economic loss to our town. Will the taxes generated by this proposed building offset the additional costs for police, firemen, teachers, and other services required by the future residents who live in this building? Property values and rents will go down. While the project will be required to provide 3 units of affordable housing for town employees, or maybe 4, I couldn't quite hear everything. How much is the difference between the going rate for an apartment in a multi-unit building and the rent charged for an affordable unit? How much money will be saved? We feel certain that the residents of Riverside would choose to pay a little more in taxes to offset the cost of housing for 3 town employees rather than have a multi-story apartment building in the center of our town. Yesterday, Stan and I spent our day at Town Hall trying to learn as much as possible about this project. We were shown a proposed plot plan showing an emergency fire lane with a fence opening on Neal Lane to allow a fire truck access. This was within a fence to be opened only in an emergency. The area appeared to be landscaped with grass and trees to screen the building. But how long would it take for those trees to grow tall enough to screen a building that tall? There is now a large oak tree near our house. Will that tree be saved or sacrificed? There is a difference between development and progress. Progress is maintaining our small town atmosphere while recognizing that some change is inevitable and that change can sometimes even be improvement. But development is when greed allows uncontrolled growth that destroys all the qualities of small town life. And it is the qualities that brought many of us here in the first place. Do you have questions about those pictures?
Ma'am, thank you very much.
Ma'am, there are a few extras that you have given us.
Oh,
Maybe
they
you
have
want-
to go into the record.
No, but these are the same pictures.
Oh, duplicates.
They're
Sorry.
duplicates, so maybe you want to take those back. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Anybody else from the public wish to speak? Yes, ma'am. Oh. And you're next, sir.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mary Keller. I live
Hello.
at 20 Riverside Lane. I'm going to start off by apologizing. I know nothing about engineering or planning or anything, so I'm asking you to please, as the Planning and Zoning Commission and as the engineers, to look very carefully at the drainage of this property and make the best decision for my Riverside neighbors. I live down the hill on Riverside Lane. 2 years ago, on June 18th, and I have pictures, I'm sorry, I don't have, oh, I lost it, I'm sorry.
It's okay. What you can do with the photos is you can email them into Patrick, and he'll put them in the record for you. Okay.
We had nearly, on Riverside Lane, nearly 1.5 feet of water on our front lawn and probably a football field wide on Riverside Lane that was coming down from Spezzano through across the street's backyard down into our road. So I would hate to have, I would hope that you would look at this and make sure that this is something that doesn't happen or isn't made worse, certainly by this apartment complex.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sir, you were next. And then you. Gotcha.
I'm Bob Forsbauer,
Hello, Mr.
24 Neil
Forsbauer.
Lane. Hello, I built a house right across from you. I feel that my house is going to be have the most impact from this structure. Now, I know they're working on it, and I think the changes that they made are proactive, but the more and more I think about it, from my standpoint of view, now, these guys have a business they want to run. I own a business. I understand. But what's happening here now is you're going to impact, at my expense, my property. So I thought about this with the garage being down below and bringing the height down. That would be great. I'm assuming that right now with the garage level the way it is, we're talking 3 stories.
You're supposed to keep talking to us.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah,
it's 3 stories.
3 stories.
That's exactly right. They took
How many stories are in this building?
This building, 3 stories.
Thank you. This is a pretty big building, right?
Yeah.
I try to conceptualize what I'm going to be looking at every day when I go out of my driveway.
Right. This building from the front is 3 stories.
Yeah. This building will be 3 stories.
Right.
This is something to consider. Right. I'm going to have the most impact on that building being right in front of my house.
Now, the ceilings are taller in this building.
Well, we're going to say it's roughly the same size.
Mr. Forsbauer, just to put it in context, can you put the elevation back up?
The red line?
Go back one. That one. That's the rear of the building, Mr. Forsbauer? Okay, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page because Town Hall has the floor-to-ceiling heights here are 14 feet. Floor-to-ceiling heights there are 9 feet. So We have to, we'll try
Right, so it
to
said
suggest to you
5
a better
15
way to
feet.
understand it.
It'll be 15 feet
Yes,
lower.
It's going to be
Okay.
taller.
Well, where I'm going with this is, there's ways to structure this where you could build below grade. There's an awning you could put out in front. So before you have your cars going down into the garage, you have an awning covering that area. So the runoff from the rain would move to the sides and not down below. You'd also employ sump pumps. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I know how to get rid of water. I've had it in houses that I've owned many, many years. I put sump pumps in, and if sump pumps they go on, they go off. It doesn't rain 365 days a year. So, I mean, with that being said, if the structure's going to be this big, has there been a shadow report done on the property? And how it's going to affect my shrubbery and surrounding shrubbery? I mean, you have that big old oak tree. That's a beautiful tree. I never even thought about how that tree is going to be impacted by the structure being built right in front of my house. Now, I want every one of you guys to sit and think, if you just built a brand-new house and you put your life savings into that house.
Oh, I know.
Okay? And then all of a sudden, we're going to build a 3-story apartment building right across the street. Okay? You know, I want to see something go there that's feasible. So there's got to be a way to work the engineering so that the structure could be lowered and we don't have to worry about the parking garage flooding out. I mean, it can be done. We put somebody on the moon. We're talking about redirecting water, one, and then how it's really going to impact my investment will have the most impact, being it's right across the street. Another item I wanted to bring up is garbage removal. Where will the garbage removal occur? Will it be in the back of the building? Will I have to hear a dumpster every morning at 5:30 wake me up? I mean, you know, you're talking 20 units or 18 units. That produces a lot of garbage. Okay? Where is this garbage going to go? How is it going to be directed into a garbage truck and hauled away?
Mm-hmm.
These are questions that I really seriously would like to have answers to.
Okay. So we'll ask the applicant to discuss that. If they haven't thought about it now, they'll give you, we'll make sure that they give you an answer.
All right. I appreciate all the work you guys are doing, and I do appreciate the work that the builder's doing.
And, you know, we're trying to accommodate two things. One is to find a way of having homes that people can move to Greenwich and can live in, because, you know, that's really hard. And at the same time, have something that works in the neighborhood. And I agree with you when you said they've been proactive. They've really tried to respond to the things you guys have said and to what we have asked them as well. They've made a lot of changes. So I think if we continue to work on it, hopefully we can get to an answer that works.
Okay. And then the shadow report, just, you know, I'd like to see how this is going to impact my property once it's built.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right?
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir. I know who's next.
My name is Don Wyko. I'm a RTM member of the 12th District. And my neighbors came and were very despondent about this building going up. Primarily, the availability of an entrance or an exit from onto Neil Lane. That is absolutely, unequivocally, we're against.
Mr. Wyko, they've removed that.
Well, in some of your language here, it says that they were looking for a prohibition against it, you know, to not be prohibited from using that exit.
It's been removed from the site plan as proposed. It's actually, they're proposing actually a pull-off for fire apparatus through a fence.
Okay. And the second thing, well, I have a lot of things, but primarily, when they're building this monstrosity, and I call it a monstrosity, is that there's going to be a lot of construction equipment blocking Neil Lane, regardless of that entrance, because they're going to go in that way, and they're going to come in the front, whichever way is necessary to get their equipment in. That is going to block us. I mean, there's going to have to be police up there directing traffic. And the other part of the entrance and exit, egress and ingress of this building is on the south side of East Putnam Avenue, okay? And the only way, as our neighbor here said, the only way that people coming out of the building are going to be able to get to the thruway is go all the way around, come up Neil Lane, and then crowd the Neil Lane in front of McDonald's. Right now, people do not stop at the stop bar for the shopping center. If they see a green light, they're coming right through it. As she mentioned, there's 77. As she mentioned, there were 77 accidents. I've seen them, and quite frankly, the police department doesn't do anything. I had a policeman standing on the corner of my street, and I showed him people going through the bar, and he says, well, I don't want to get involved. Okay? So this is the attitude of our police department. And the other thing is, I have pictures of tractor trailers that ran over, knocked down the hydrant on Neil Lane and Westcott Court. If you like to see them, I have it right here.
Do you mind letting us keep them? Because once you show them to us, we have to give them to Pat.
No problem. I'll get more pictures.
Okay.
And I have pictures of the large tractor trailers in the neighborhood. And I have, these were presented to me by a neighbor, okay? Who was very concerned about this. And she's been keeping track of this for a long, long time. All right, just bear with me for a second. I'm just trying to separate. Here's another problem, too. This is a good picture. Nice and green. And here it is, another one. Okay, here, I'll submit these to you. As you can see, tractor trailers, this is Westcott Court. This is in front of one of my neighbor's house on 20 Hoover, okay? There's also...
You need to be back at the mic, or the court reporter.
Sorry.
You're already giving him, I can tell from the look on his face. No, you got to go back to the mic, because the court reporter's going to ball me out. Okay.
I'm on your side.
Right?
As long as you're on my side. All right. Has they taken a perk test for this property? And what did that indicate? How far down is the water level?
We'll get that answer. I'm pretty sure they did one.
Secondly, what about the rain runoff? When you build that kind of structure with that large of a roof, there's going to be a tremendous amount of rain coming off that roof. And that's going to go into the storm drains itself.
It gets captured by the units that they're putting in.
They're putting in tanks to capture the water?
Yeah, they're required to capture the first inch.
Well, how large of a tank?
Again,
that's up to, we have to get the... I'm sorry.
The town engineering department reviews those, and they need to get their sign off before we can actually approve.
Okay. Well, the storm drains that are up there now, do you know the depth of them from the street level?
We don't, but that's why they have to go through the engineering department and get them satisfied before we actually can take any action. We can't approve something if they have not approved their engineering.
Again, my main concern is that Neil Lane is prohibited from being used as any kind of a drive except by the fire department, who would have a lockbox on the gate, and only the fire department will be able to access that lockbox to get the key to open the lock. Are you aware of that system?
Yes.
Okay.
They also have a remote that they carry.
Well, maybe Greenwich is a little more ahead of Stanford. I don't know. That's what we had in Stanford. And the other thing, the front foyer area that's got permeate, has stone,
Yeah, the pavers.
the paver system. Just the other day, I saw a truck parked right in front of the building on East Putnam. So they're going to come into that area there because it's accessible. Okay, and it's going to cause backups and whatnot. People don't even know where they're going when they come up here. I've had a gentleman stop me on Neil Lane asking me where Hyatt Hotel was. I had to direct them to it. Okay, I mean their GPS is there. I don't know what's wrong with them, but or they just can't read. I'm up here to be emphatic about Neil Lane. That's our main purpose. Okay. And the height of the building, isn't there a restriction? Anything over, you can't build a house over 35 feet?
Okay, so the thing is that when you're doing moderate income units, you get a bonus, an incentive bonus, and you can go higher.
Well, that's a little...
I know.
That's a little far-fetched because...
I know, but that's what our regulation...
Medium or low-cost housing is still going to be $1,500, $1,600, $1,800 a month. That's part of
But that's what our regulation says, so... That's what our regulation says. It says that if you do moderate income units, that we give you X incentives, and they're all spelled out in the regulations.
Madam Chair, this is also a commercial zone, so...
I know. The first, okay, that's a good thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Isn't the commercial zone, according to the ordinance, the first 100 feet off of East Putnam?
No.
And the remainder is residential? That's a residential commercial area. We're talking about.
That lot is...
How wide is that lot from the...
That lot is zoned LB. It's zoned commercial.
Yeah, it's also zoned R7.
No, it's only LB. That lot is only LB.
That's not what it says on it's R7 and I don't know what, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but I saw
mine
R7
it says it's all LB.
There's R7 in the area and the map. That idea is somewhat consistent across Route 1, that 1,000-foot idea or 100-foot idea, but there are areas where the line meanders and it captures an entire parcel. And in this area here, it does capture this property and the McDonald's property to the east as completely in the commercial zone.
The McDonald's property, I don't want to get involved in that because that's another fiasco. But you're saying that there is no R7 zone in there? I thought I saw it and on their plans, R7 and right.
The neighboring lot to the rear.
What is this?
Go ahead.
Mr. Wyko, if you can take a look at this map, I'll explain it to you.
Okay, so what you're looking at is that behind this...
all the way back, it's an LB zone. This is the commercial zone. That's the post road.
Post road.
This is Neil Lane back here.
Yeah.
Okay. This is, there's the zone, R6 here, so the commercial zone encompasses it.
From this line to their property line up front.
It's 288 feet from here to here, so.
So it's got to be half of it, right?
So
this is Mrs. Goldberg. 100 feet is what we're talking about.
Oh, got it. Got it. Okay, so Mr. McRae has explained that to you, and you got to go back to the mic or the court reporter comes to yell at me. And he's very mean.
I'm familiar with, I had to come before this commission 30 years ago to build my house.
Okay.
They made me put a street in from Neil Lane to Park Place because there was no street. And it was supposed to be, there was an ordinance that the fifth house is required to do it. I was not the fifth house. I didn't have the influence, and I was brand new building in Greenwich. So I had to pay for that road out of my pocket.
Okay, now I can't fix that now,
okay, but I'm just giving you some history. And I was told that I couldn't build a house over 35 feet.
Okay, so now you know that there's a regulation that allows you to build a...
It's changed, I guess.
We've had a regulation for a long time that if you were building a multifamily with moderate income units, you got incentives. You got a little extra, and that has been on the books since the 80s. It's 86, I believe.
Must have been the late 80s, because I built them starting.
Mr. Wyko,
Yes, okay, so sir, if you would, go ahead. So I can't fix the past. So if you could go ahead.
Why do we have to have such a large building there? I mean, why can't they just build 3?
Because it's what the regulations allow them to do. Now, we're looking at the regulations at the moment, and we're studying how they should look, and we are studying whether we are allowing too much to be built, but this application came in under the existing regulations.
Okay.
So
they
it
came in under the
complies.
wire. But just down the road.
We're looking at that. Down the road, we got it.
No, down the road, there's commercial buildings on the, commercial taxpayers, we used to call them. There's retail stores on the bottom floor and apartments on the top floor, and I think they're empty.
Okay. Now, sir, on this application, the thing that you're most concerned about, there's a couple of things you're concerned about. You want to make sure to minimize the impact on the neighborhood in terms of what happens. They've heard us ask them for a lower building, and you're worried about the traffic, the flow through Neil Lane, the accidents, having trucks on Neil Lane, and you have some concern about the drainage, which engineering in the town handles, but we are, yes, we know that, I mean, one of the things that the applicant has been telling us is that there's a water problem there. That's why they don't want to put the parking underground. You've just confirmed what they've been telling us. So those are your 3 concerns. Is there anything you want to add to that? Neighborhood impact, well, you can stand back up.
There's no way they're going to have to build, there's no way that they're going to dig underground to lower the building.
No, because, they're lowering the building by making it smaller. They're trying very hard to do that, but they don't want to go underground for the parking because of the very water issue you raised. Because they're going to encounter water and flooding, and they'll displace water, which is worse for the neighborhood. So what they're trying to do is a sound engineering solution. So you've got the neighborhood, the light, you agreed with the light issue, the shade light issue, the traffic, and the height of the building. What else?
I have construction phasing. You want to make sure there's no construction vehicles on Neil Lane during that time.
Well, okay. You know what, I've just remembered what it is.
Good.
I believe, I should have thought about this before. I believe that the main purpose of you getting your approval for this building is to give the okay for the owner now to sell to a developer, because you have the same situation on Eastcott and Sheeps Hill Road, where that property was going into residential and commercial zoning. And there's also another lot that's being sold by Tedesco.
Okay, so we can only look at one application.
This is all, but it all comes into play.
But we're not allowed to consider that another application might be down the road. It's just, we're not allowed to.
No, it's already on, it's already been approved.
But, the Sheep Hill one that was approved isn't being built.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
$8 million for the property, that's why.
So, but that's not before us. On the application that's before us, the last thing you wanted to do was raise this question about the phasing.
I hate to be so adamant about it, but I'm sorry.
No, I understand it, but I can only, all of us sitting here, the 7 of us, can only address on this application how we can handle your concerns. So we just need to hear what your concerns are so we can ask the right questions.
Okay, just one more comment. I mean, are you being forced by the state laws to do what's offensive to Greenwich?
No, sir, this particular regulation is a local regulation.
Local regulation?
It's a town regulation that's been on the books since the mid-'80s.
Yeah, you said that about the
because we wanted to have our teachers, our firemen, and our police live in town, and that was why the regulation was written.
Okay. Then,
and you like those firemen.
Are you familiar with the one down on Railroad Avenue? And,
yes, sir, I am.
Where they have all teachers and firemen living on that? And that's just 2 stories high. It's a condominium complex. Over on Railroad Avenue and what's the one, the interstate goes under the thruway? I can't think of it. What is it?
Well, but sir,
Steamboat, no.
the thing is, the regulations allow them to build
Griffin
what...
Ford is,
Okay, right. The regulations allow them to build what they're proposing. So we can't say no because our own regulations permit what's being proposed. We have those regulations under study, and we're going to change them. But this applicant is before us on the existing set. Okay?
I think this should be delayed indefinitely.
Okay, I know you feel that way. We're trying to work on it so that you like it better, but this is within the current regulations.
Lower to 2 stories, and it probably shouldn't be a problem.
All right.
Thank you,
sir.
Again.
Wait, let Mr. McRae's going to make sure he's got all your thoughts.
Public comment, I make a lot of notes here, but I missed
He likes to
your
make
address.
notes.
My address?
Yes.
10 Park Place.
Okay.
I know
And,
where it
Private road off of...
you had mentioned at the beginning that you're in the RTM 12th District?
Yes.
District 12.
Okay, are you representing them tonight, or
No.
is this?
No, I'm just
Private
representing
citizen.
myself, and I
Okay,
have
thank you.
another member of the RTM. I tried to get as many as I could here, but,
Okay.
you know, doesn't concern
So
them,
we
I
got
guess.
what your key concerns are.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And remember that this isn't decided, I mean, this isn't final yet. It's going to come back.
Oh,
It's
I
a
thought it said final.
It's a preliminary. We're going to close it tonight.
Oh.
We're going to send them off with marching orders at some point, and they will continue to fine tune it.
Excellent.
Okay.
I mean, that's the best you could do. I mean, I know, you're...
Okay. All right.
Unless you could just...
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak? Ms. Foster.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Do you mind, Ms. Foster? And ma'am, you have to come back to the microphone, and you have to say your name again.
Barbara Goldberg.
Yes.
I would like to know if the parking for this project is at ground level.
Yes, it is.
Surface. Are they required to not allow any groundwater from their,
Yes.
any rainwater, any water from their project?
Yes.
To not flow downhill?
Ma'am, the drainage manual for the town requires that you must retain all your own stormwater on your own property. That's what our engineering department will review this application for. Okay? That's what's supposed to happen. It's all supposed to stay on site. That said, with the storms we're getting nowadays, it's a challenge. Just saying. We're getting a lot more rain now, and it's impacting. But that is what the drainage manual does. Would you let Mrs. Foster speak now?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Susan Foster. I'm a board member of the Riverside Association, and Liz is here tonight. We're both going to be speaking on behalf of the association. I just want clarification, Madam Chair. You speak about these regs. My understanding of the regs, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they're discretionary. They're not mandatory.
Correct.
Discretionary on your part, correct?
Yes, correct. The 6110. That 6110, we can grant an FAR of up to 0.9, for example, of up to. The applicant has reduced because we indicated that we did not want to go to the 0.9.
I hear you. I just want a clarification.
Yeah.
I really appreciate what they've been doing, okay?
Good.
I just think they can go further. Okay, and then I just want to go through some things.
Okay.
But I just want the public to understand.
Yes.
Because it's kind of sounded like it was mandatory, and it's not.
That we approve it. No, we did not say it was mandatory.
Yeah, it's discretionary.
We just said that they were within what was permitted by the regulations.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay.
I just wanted to be sure. Okay. Okay, so a few things that I'd like you to take
Yes, ma'am.
put on the checklist here. I can't tell from the drawing, so maybe you can clarify this for me. So you have Pet Pantry, and you have the green out in front of Pet Pantry. Where does this building line match up with the Pet Pantry building?
I don't remember what the setback is.
We would like to see them aligned. Or at least not going in front of the Pet Pantry line.
So the setback in the front here is 35 feet. So what they've done is, by regulation, they would only have to be 25 feet of setback. We said to them that we wanted them to go farther back from the road. which is where you're going with this.
Right.
And they went another 10 feet back. That's what they've given us.
But does it line up with Pet Pantry? The
don't-
thing that we're concerned about is here we're trying, and we're spending hundreds of hours to try to make Riverside have a sense of community.
Yes.
But if these buildings, as they're going up, we're going back and forth like this, we're never going to achieve it.
But I can't tear down Pet Pantry. But what I can do is ask Mr. Toth to pull his building back. You don't want it necessarily to align with Pet Pantry, because when he pulls his building back, he can landscape the front, which is what we're trying to do for Riverside.
If the landscaping can be cohesive with Pet Pantry, that's what we think would look, if it could be coordinated. Do you know what I mean?
I understand that, but Pet Pantry is done. So
Mrs.
what we can
Foster,
do,
if you
hold on, talking. But what we can do is when this building gets in, we have insisted that the applicant pull it back so that we can add landscaping in the front, because the goal is to green up the post road. Nick, you're on.
I'm looking at an aerial photograph. Now, Pet Pantry is actually quite close to the street.
It's closer, that's right. I just want to make sure.
I'm not too sure if you really want to line with
No,
Pet
I don't know. That's what I'm asking, is how much further back
From the
is it going
plans
to
we
be?
have, actually, the building is set farther back. I don't know the exact dimension.
But it has
But
this,
also remember-
it's paved curving though, the in and the out, right? So there's
also
not
remember,
much
if
green.
we
The
push
green
it
is on
back-
the two corners, not in the middle,
If we
right?
push it back from the post road, it pushes it closer to Neil Lane. So like you have to, it's that trade-off. Do you want it closer to the commercial development?
She was
or-
willing to move it forward, and I said no, because we're trying to make a space to plant on the post road.
Okay.
That's the thing. Well, I
Okay,
mean-
I just, if there's a way to kind of weave these buildings together better, it would be
But
great.
having the setbacks match is of less environmental value than adding deep-rooted plantings and more plantings along the
I agree
post
with
road.
you. I agree with you on that.
Okay,
I
thanks.
want to, I want to just share a little
you.
thing, and I think probably a lot of people are going to think this is very minor, but it's not.
Nothing's minor.
You know, there, as they say, a lot of accidents at Exit 5,
Yes.
and I've made it a part-time career to get things fixed at Exit 5. So I just want to share with you, it took me a year, and you can ask Fred Camillo about this, and many emails and many photographs to get 3 signs that were hit by a truck and mangled at Exit 5, okay? So, you know, sometime within the last 2 weeks, the point of Exit 5, if, I don't know who lives, any of you guys have noticed it, it got hit. It's a mess right now. They're cones. 2 lights got taken down over a year ago. One's laying off to the side of the road. Other stuff has happened when you get on 95 going south. There's a exposed raw cement thing. So I just share with you and try to get the state to correct this stuff. It's really, really difficult. I got the curbing fixed around the median, right? So this area is going to, you know, he's got a right to get an apartment building, you know, and put something up. But we're going to take big hits in that area, and I just don't know what the answer is.
Okay, but so there's not, because I'm looking for what specifically. He's been trying to meet us part way. What
I would like the
specifically?
building to be smaller. We would like the building, less people, less traffic. It would be less abuse, you know?
Okay.
All
right.
You know, the building's smaller, but it is almost out to the setbacks, right? It is. Like a couple feet. Like, there's no green space, really. There's a little bit of green on each corner. It's, you know, guys, if you have a 3 or 4 year or 5-year-old, you're not going out with a baby carriage and enjoying your green, tiny little, right?
Agreed.
And there is no park. I really think, and I think these are good guys, and I think they're trying to work with the town, but I think it's incumbent, you're the break. We have no park there. And in New York City and lots of other places, when this kind of situation arises, the developers are required to solve this problem. And we're not putting that pressure on here. And once you let it go here, it's over with.
Right.
It's over with. For Riverside.
Well,
it's over with. I mean, at that point, the entire post road is going to become apartment buildings within 10 years. It's going to be one right after another, and there's no park. There's no place
Ms.
for these
Foster,
people to go.
you're forgetting something. We have a moratorium right now on the very regulation that applies to this building. Okay, so it isn't over. We've got a lot of pushback from the public on applications under 6110. We have a moratorium on it, and we're working to revise it just for this reason. So it's never over, because we have to amend the regulations to get to what people want in their town. So it's not over.
Okay, so,
Okay.
yeah, and my other, I haven't been to a lot of these hearings, but I've been to a few.
You have.
My impression on this particular project, and I know that they're trying to work with you guys, is that the drawings are not really very developed for being at this step of the juncture.
Yes, there have been a lot of changes, and the clock ran out. So at this point, we will give them, when this gets decided, we will give them very specific instructions on what will we want to see when it comes back in for final. But since we get another long crack at it when it comes in for final, we're kind of okay with the fact that they've been changing it and they didn't get all the changes worked through. But there's a bunch of stuff that's bothering us that isn't in the
It's very
plans.
sketchy.
Right, it is, there are things that are missing.
Yes.
Like a detailed landscape plan. But that's not done yet.
What the materials are, what is the roof, what is anything?
Oh, Mr.
What is
McRae.
the building
Mr.
exactly?
McRae will be all over that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, for me and for many of us in Riverside, the the bonus isn't worth it, because these are 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom units, and I agree with you, it's a balancing act, and the town needs to do this. But this building isn't really creating homes for entry level. It's really creating a revolving door. And there's going to be a real issue on the upkeep and care of this building. I mean, there's going to be a lot of turnover. It's really not conducive for a family with a young child or 2 young children. I frankly don't think we are gaining much. We're gaining something on paper, but we're not really in reality gaining something.
Well, that you're the second person to say this, and to be honest with you, you only move forward by taking one step at a time. So you get 3 units here and 4 units there, and you get what you get.
How about 3-bedroom units, or,
that
something
is
more conducive to families?
I recognize that, and we pushed another applicant to go forward, and he changed it to 3 bedrooms. And when he came back in, he said, this is just not what there's demand for. And what business do we have demanding that an applicant... we can't decide people's bedrooms. We did on that one, but I'm not sure we were right.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's all I have to say. But thank you so much for all your hard work.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Caitlin Wardell, and I'm also a member of the Riverside Association. And
Hello.
Hi. And I do want to build off of the landscaping, because I am the youngest person in this room. So my friends,
sure about that?
my friends are your target audience. And so when you say 3 bedrooms isn't quite what they want, I know people in the city who, having a second kid, they can't afford house prices in Riverside.
Exactly.
That would be something.
Right.
So I don't know why that people are saying it's not.
But it's the developer who makes that decision.
Right. I don't know that we should agree with all developers.
Okay.
Having sat through enough of these and traffic studies that they've paid for, I don't believe everything developers say. But that being said,
we don't either.
With this, without the green space, as what Susan said, how are you going to get families? Like, who wants to have small children trying to walk on the post road? You have a McDonald's and a pet pantry. That doesn't speak to nutrition, that doesn't speak to healthy air quality, a reason to leave Manhattan or wherever for Greenwich,
right.
The dream of the green. And as the developer, my question is, are you planning to build this and sell it, or are you going to hold on to it for 20 years? Because frankly, it's a depreciating asset, and if it's not attractive to families, yes, you will get a revolving door, and your property will get beaten up, and where is your profit in that?
But again, that's actually not a decision that the Planning and Zoning Commission can make.
But I'm saying this to the developer to say, if you had more green space, you sacrificed some space, maybe made it a little bit smaller, you could charge more for your not moderate income apartments, and it would be a sort of attractive.
Okay, well, he's listening to you say it, so he'll.
I'm just saying for young people who want to live, you know, who want to give up the glamour of a city, even you know, Stamford. Why do you think they want to necessarily pay top dollar to live next to McDonald's?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, not going to say a word. Yes, anybody else want to speak? Yes, ma'am. And then Liz.
Hi, Judy Forsbauer, 24
Hello.
Neil Lane. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to picture Putnam Avenue and where we have other apartment buildings like this.
There's quite a few.
Are they right on Putnam Avenue?
Yeah, there's quite a few along the Post Road. So like across from Diamond Hill, there's apartments across from Diamond Hill Methodist, you know, across the street there. Over in Cos Cob, there's some units John Ferrari built. Over where Citibank is, there's a whole bunch of apartments. There's apartment units on, what's that corner? Old Church. There's a lot, because this regulation only lets you do it in commercial zones. We actually have a fair number of multifamilies along the Post Road. Surprising.
Well, I see them, but they don't look like they're right on Putnam. Like I thought of some, but they look like this. They're
more set back, is
They're
what you're
set
saying.
back. They don't look like this thing is going to really be on top of Putnam, because there's not, that property is small. So I was thinking the same thing. There's another empty one, that brown one. You guys know what I'm talking about. I can't think of what building used to be there. I think it's a multi-use if you're going west on the left side.
And where are you in town?
I think you're talking. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about the old Estate Treasures building.
Yes.
So the front building there, the first floor is retail, the second floor is
it's
residential.
multi-use. I don't see anybody moving in there. And I don't know who would want to live right on Putnam, like this young lady just said, right next to McDonald's and overlooking 95.
But our regulation only lets people do it in commercial zones,
I
so that's
understand
the
that,
only
but
place they
I'm
can
just
build.
saying, Riverside is getting this big, gigantic building that is going to look like it's sitting right on top of, it can't not look like it's sitting right on top of Putnam. It isn't going to look good. It isn't going to be good for our community.
So the big, gigantic building, a lot of people build 5,000 square foot homes, right?
Yes.
You've heard that number.
Sure.
This big, gigantic building is 23,000 square feet. So it's like 4 houses. It's not giant New York City apartment building. I mean, just to give you a sense of the proportion, it's like having put 4 houses. The lot is a small one, but it's like putting 4 houses, and you could really, in a lot this size, you could almost put 4 houses in the R6 and R7 zones in town. I mean, there's a lot of Byram has this much density. Just to give you an idea of what it is.
What the size is really going to look like.
So a lot of Byram has 4 or 5 houses on the equivalent size of land. Just, they're smaller houses, but you know, that kind of idea. So it's 3 stories and it's 23,000 square feet.
And one other thing, are those garage doors going to be open or closed? Like, do they open every time a car goes through?
I'm saving that question. I want to talk to them about that. I've been nudging Nick about it.
If not, aren't we going to be looking at posts and stuff?
We're going to talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, wait, you had your chance. Hold on a second. There's one. Oh, no, you had your chance too. Has anybody, Liz, let everybody who hasn't spoken speak, okay? And then you come back for real quick ones, because we're getting late on this. We've been spending a lot of time on this. And we're going to have other shots, okay?
Okay.
Get the important things said.
Okay. Liz Peldunas, that's the most important thing, Riverside Association. I'm going to loop back to a more global picture
Okay,
of
good.
Riverside,
Thank
having
you.
just gone through the process of surveying residents to find out what they want to see on the Post Road, and then having our annual association meeting where we had that topic.
You
And
know
I'm
you
going
owe us
to-
that feedback.
Pardon?
Yeah, we've been waiting to get that from you.
Okay.
Excitedly. has it.
I'm going to hand out the survey results because there was an open-ended question here that 102 people, I think, responded to.
Do you have a copy for Mr. Haslam?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. The question was, the first question was, thinking about the Riverside portion of the Post Road from the Mianus River Bridge to Sound Beach Avenue, rank the following aspects of development according to their importance to you, with 1 being the most important through 6 the least important. And the options, or the things that people needed to rank, were new building size, traffic, pedestrian safety, greenscape, consistent signage, and consistent lighting. And the summary, sort of like motherhood and apple pie, the most concerning issues were new building size and traffic. Those over 50% of the people who responded said that that was their number 1 or 2 concern. But more interestingly was question number 2. Tell us about other important priorities you see for future development along the Post Road in Riverside. This was an open-ended question. People could write as much as they wanted. This is where the wealth of thoughts about what's going on the Post Road for the future are captured. And I actually sat down with this and sorted them into buckets, 1 being buildings, looks and contents. So what the buildings look like have meaning to people, what is inside the buildings have meaning to people. Then another gross level category, cars, traffic volume, intersections, and parking. So I put comments into all of those buckets, and it's very rich as far as capturing what the Post Road is today and where it might go forward. Then to capture signage and lighting, I created the bucket of appearance and aesthetics, which seemed to be an adequate grouping for the comments there. And then finally, we had safety, pedestrian, and bike, and some other concerns. So I've made copies of those.
Can you synthesize it all, since we won't have a chance to read it?
I don't expect you to read it. I am going to synthesize.
How it applies to this.
How it applies to this is that people are concerned with what's going on the Post Road, and they're concerned about this development in particular. After the POCD plan process, the association saw an opening to help try and direct future projects, because we anticipate there will be many in the coming years, in a direction where we can build a cohesive image for Riverside. And when the applicant's architect was here many months ago, he had a slide which showed all of the varied buildings that we have along the Post Road and how it doesn't hang together. And I won't say again what...
We all had a bad reaction to that.
Yes, we all had a bad reaction to that. Go ahead. But what we have as a mutt doesn't need to be continued. So some of the questions, and the other point my husband brought up, which was a good one, Exit 5 into Greenwich is unique among 2, 3, 4, and 5 as far as people coming to our town and being delivered into an environment. It is the only one where you are dumped directly into a commercial zone. If you think about 2, a residential neighborhood in Byram. 3, you're sort of down in the Netherlands of parking.
But that is a commercial zone.
It's a commercial zone, but it's not trying to be anything other than parking lots. 4.
Hang tight.
Well, that's for you guys to work out. Exit 4, you come to an intersection over the highway and the railroad bridge. But 5, you get off the highway.
Zone.
So you look at McDonald's, and the mock-up that I haven't seen yet is this building as proposed. How does it appear behind the McDonald's? Because if you look, the house is really small. And if this building is setback to setback, front to back, it's basically the Great Wall of China behind actually what looks like a modest McDonald's, even though this building drives me crazy, as that's the welcome to Greenwich at exit 5. So I'd be curious if the architect could give you a rendering to show as you sit. So this is from the crosswalk, crossing across to McDonald's. But when you stop at that stoplight at exit 5, what do you see behind the McDonald's? Sketch that in with the computer. I'd like to know, because I think it would be...
They can do that for us.
I think it would be frightening, actually. The intersection itself, people have talked about that. It already functions at an F level, according to their traffic engineer, and the traffic engineer says in the report that this really wouldn't make any difference. I think we should not be in the business of adding just that last drop to see if we can actually create a level G that doesn't exist for beyond all saving. I'm concerned we've had 3 pedestrian fatalities in Greenwich in the past 8 weeks now. Having now walked the Post Road, intimately familiar with every bump and crack in the sidewalk, having been beeped at by somebody, I'm on the sidewalk, the car wants to enter Riverside Commons, she's beeping for me to get out of the way. What kind of environment are we building for 18 families that we're shoehorning into this 0.6 acre lot? I struggle with that. I think that we are at the point where 3.5 should be rounded up to 4. And we need to, if the building is going to be the size that it is, that we need to ask for more, if that's what the goal of 6110G is. In sum, there is a record, or a file, a letter in your file from a Greenwich Town resident that I think captures better than what I'm saying here, and I just want to read the few sentences. Greenwich is the gateway to New England, and projects like these erode this quality. I will leave it to the experts to determine optimal parking logistics and other ingress-egress issues given the congestion of Putnam Avenue, while balancing the need to be sensitive to contiguous residential neighbors. What I can opine on is what I would call quality and feel, which is what I have been talking about. In my opinion, the current proposal appears physically imposing, offers very little or no green space, and is very clinical in appearance. It merely perpetuates many of the poor design choices made in that vicinity over the past 3 decades. At least those properties are properly scaled and not towering over Putnam Avenue. This development could have the potential to uplift the area if executed with sensitivity and thoughtfulness. Regrettably, in its current form, it misses the mark entirely. So, in sum, we need a building that's worthy of the Exit 5 gateway. We need to see how massive it looks. Gotcha. You've heard from the next door neighbors what they need, and I endorse all of that. And I think that if we let it go through, then we have to see 2-bedroom apartments within that allocated, as opposed to 3 1-bedroom allocated to moderate income, something that allows families of more than a couple to live there. Do you need my picture of McDonald's?
I think we got that image, but...
Is that burned into your brain? Okay.
Yeah. And you're going to give us that. I've been dying to see this.
And I'm going to share this with another developer in the back seat here, who might do more work in Riverside. Okay. Mr. Patrick?
Okay, so that, there were 2 people who wanted to speak again. Has everybody gotten to speak who wanted to speak to begin with? Did you want to speak? No. Okay, so you wanted to come back, you guys, and just keep it quick, because we still got work to do tonight?
Okay, Caitlin Wardell, 4 houses on 0.6 of an acre, 23,000 square feet. The corner, I'm talking specifically of 60 and 62 Lockwood Road in Riverside. Those 2 houses jammed together, tower over the street. You know what? They're not selling. So space is everything. Lastly, I'm just going to say, have any of you read The Power Broker? I would assume some of you have. Okay, Cross Bronx Expressway, decimated a neighborhood. In the end, you all owe more to the people in Riverside and certainly the people on Neil Lane than you owe to any developer. And you should really read that book.
Ma'am, we don't owe anything to the developers.
Right, exactly.
And
I'm
we
just
are
saying.
aware of that, but what you have to be clear on is that when we have a set of regulations, people
know.
come in with those regulations, we have to apply them fairly and equitably.
I know.
It is not about owing a developer
the
something.
spirit of the law. Trust
Okay.
me, I understand.
Gotcha.
I understand. I just think
Okay.
everyone should read the Power
Thank you.
Broker.
Okay, come on back. Make it quick. Don't yell at us.
I ain't gonna yell at you. Stop doing it.
I
Bob
know.
Forsbauer, 24 Neil Lane. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm yelling. Maybe it's the
No,
mic.
it's okay.
I just want to address the situation again with the height. And I'm not a regulations guy. I don't understand it. But with this regulation, it allows you to go how much higher than what would normally be
It
allowed
allows you to go to 47 and a half feet
from?
from 40. And they've gotten, 35 in the zone?
No, 40 in the zone.
40 in the zone. And so they're trying to get it lower, even now.
Yeah.
Okay?
So let's say we're going to get 3 apartments out of this, because if you do the 4, then they're not going to be able to.
Well, we'll see.
Right.
We'll see what
So
they're.
for 3 apartments, it's not making sense. You're going to cause so many people in our neighborhood for just 3 apartments, just 3. You're going to put at detriment my neighborhood.
Okay.
All right. I just want to be on record on saying that.
I got you.
I mean, that's is the cost.
Yep. The
really
trade-offs.
worth
Yep. Okay.
Might I say, as a suggestion in the future, why not give tax abatements for new construction? Well, again, I don't know. I'm just
telling you.
suggestions.
So planning and zoning's not allowed to do that. So I'll just, you write Fred and you tell Fred you want that. Okay.
All right.
I mean, we can't do that part. But if you get the.
Yeah, but if we want to bring in people,
Okay. All right.
moderate income.
So we'll mention it anytime. I mean, we'll bring it up.
Yeah.
But it's not something we have the authority to do. What else?
And then you had mentioned a comment about it's not a mansion, it's an apartment. And when you spoke to my wife, it's a big building. It's a building.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to be the one impacted the most.
I gotcha. And then we understand what you're looking for in terms of the impacts, but I was just trying to give her a sense of the
Right.
proportion.
Yeah, I'd really
Okay.
love to imagine it and maybe put a post in there and see how high it's going to go and, how it's going to affect us. The shadow study I would like to see.
Okay.
All right? Sorry to keep you guys so late.
No, that's all right, but thank you.
All right.
Okay, everybody's good, right?
Madam Chair, I just want to, you were correct.
You can't
It
talk.
was 35. It
What?
was 35.
I thought it was 35.
I was on to the next application.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, okay. So
Hold on, so what you're saying was 35
normally-
what?
5 is the as of right in the zone. The incentives allow for an extra story and up to 47 and a half feet.
All right, so we're looking at 12 feet. That's a big difference for three
But they're not
apartments.
doing
again, it's an
47 and a
extra
half.
story.
They've
It's-
brought it down.
Okay.
Great.
They were that high
okay.
originally.
42.
And we,
42, all right.
and they're trying to get below 40, which is why the number had stuck in Pat's head.
Yeah, it's
They're
too bad we couldn't just dig a hole.
I got it.
and make it work.
Yeah, but you
know?
also don't want a swimming pool in their garage, so.
Oh, well,
So,
don't build the
but they're
property
trying
then.
to bring it down, and that's what we're negotiating with them. So I think they've heard you guys loud and clear. It was very helpful that everybody came
I'm
and
not worried
spoke.
about them. I'm more worried about you guys.
But how they respond is based on the input
Right.
that they get, that they hear from the public. They know how the public feels. It's very helpful to the process to have everybody come and say stuff.
I understand. Just one other thing, moving forward from tonight. Tonight, you're going to vote on whether you want this to proceed?
My guess is we are not going to vote tonight because we've got a lot to consider. My guess is we'll close it and not vote tonight. I haven't asked people, but I'm still wrapping my head around stuff,
Okay.
so I need some time.
All right, great, thank you.
Yeah.
And just for the public's benefit, a closure just means that the record is closed. There will be no more discussion. There'll be no more public presentations on it. The commission will now take that time then to deliberate and render a decision at a later date, possibly.
Okay, so nobody else from the public? Wait, no, you guys? I want to go to bed tonight.
I won't be long at all.
Yes, ma'am.
Joanne Wyco, Park Place.
Yep, you're with him.
I'm with him. I just want you to be aware that, personally, I feel that the whole thing is ridiculous. There's a one-family house there now.
Yes, ma'am.
119-year-old home, sitting there, nice and quiet, okay?
I know.
You're going to put in 18 families with probably 36, maybe 40, maybe 50 cars, who knows? You're going to have little kids. There's no space for little kids. There's no room for pets. There's no room for anything that everybody wants.
This is everything we have been saying to the applicant. We've been saying this. The very first time we heard this, we said every single thing that you're just said.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
The front of the property is LB zone. I was under the impression that back, although it's on Neil Lane, was R7. Evidently, it's not. Okay. But it is an R7 zone for the people who live there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So even putting access for a fire truck would be detrimental. You think these people want to look at fire trucks or any, and personally I think that it'll be broken open and they're going to use it as some type of egress or ingress. I know that can't happen, it won't happen, stuff happens.
Your best safety in any of those situations is the people who live around these structures. That is the best zoning enforcement we have in town, is the neighbors. So you just call us up and tell us anytime you see a problem. Because that's what zoning, if we don't catch it, our best protection is the neighborhood.
Well, again, I think the whole thing is ridiculous to even fathom that you want to put 18 families where one family was residing. And the area is totally crowded already. Exit 5, as you well know, was deemed the worst, I believe it was in the state. Not just Greenwich, the worst in the state. If you try to come out of there, there's 4, 5, 6 intersections there. It's absolutely absurd. And to think that you want to put more cars and more trucks and more people, and who the hell wants to live right next to McDonald's and Pet Pantry, and you have children in there, and you're going to have baby carriages? It's not going to happen.
I didn't ask you not to yell at me, did I?
I'm sorry. I speak loudly. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
I'm like him. I get very loud.
Okay.
Excuse
so
me.
I got your points. I know that's a bad intersection.
Very bad.
Okay.
And also Neil Lane. Neil Lane is a narrow road. I got you. It's already congested. We don't need any more congestion there. I'm on Park Place. I come right out of Park Place. I'm on Neil. I'm with Riverside Commons. And you're smashed into that damn McDonald's that's there. And it's just a total mess already. It's just going to be absolutely horrendous. I cannot see putting 18 families there. Absolutely ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's it for the public comment, right? Quick, Mr. Haslam, gallop up here.
I know you've got other matters to get to, so I'll just be very brief.
I think we have comments for you.
Comments?
Anyway, yeah, don't close just yet. So if you're just going to make a closing.
I thought that's what you wanted. But
Okay, so now that you're up here listening and Mr. Toth is listening, there are several things that you can address. And we're just going to run through. I don't know whose property that oak tree is on.
I don't know
what
she's referring to. We can look at saving that. We have that area landscaped, I believe, so we could.
You heard all the things that people said. I'm sure you took notes.
Yeah.
Did you, let me ask it to you differently. Of the concerns that people raised, is there anything that you want to push back on that you're not going to look at? I know you're looking at reducing the height. I know that you're looking at implementing traffic improvements to the extent possible, what can be done to ameliorate the traffic, and you've been talking to the engineering department. The shading, where the light, how it affects the neighborhood, that should be something pretty straightforward. That idea of showing what the street's going to look like with the building in.
Right.
I mean, that's something I think you can do on the computer. I don't think we're asking you to spend a lot of money. You'll obviously do a phasing plan. I think we agreed with Riverside that the further setback is environmentally better and will have a better impact on the post road, so that we're going to stay with what we had asked you to do.
Right.
The massing, the bedrooms, okay, does anybody have any other comments from the commission on Nick does, he's got a lot of list.
I have a beginning of a long list, but just need more clarification on the island extension.
The traffic
The
improvement.
traffic, that I'm still befuddled as to why that is a good thing, bad thing. You know, the more I look at it, it becomes more of a problem. I'm looking at the aerial now, and I really can't tell where the island actually ends and how far it's going to extend, and what the thought process from the traffic engineer was behind that. So
I think it was that people would make a sweep a little bit to the west and then cut to the east across the double yellow line.
Yeah. Okay. I've been making lots of notes, but I think I need some time to actually put them all to really put them together, because it'll give you a good list of things.
Well, we're prepared to get a pretty extensive laundry list from you of things that you want us to address. But a lot of the stuff we just couldn't even do yet, even something as simple as necessarily giving you a view from exit 5 of what it's going to look
think
like.
the neighborhood is justified in wanting to see it.
Oh, I agree.
And the other thing is, when Mr. Ferrari came in here with the West PUD applications, we had the same dialogue with him that these neighbors are raising, which is, can you work, how did you get to your bedroom mix? And why is that good for the market? Because that's something people apparently want to hear, and we've asked this more than once. We are asking.
I have to say, though, that as you know, I represent Mr. Chund and his wife, who own that the building in Cos Cob. They have apartments above that they built.
Yes, they do. I had forgotten that.
Those rented immediately and a very good value. There's no parkland there. There's no place to walk dogs or walk children or whatnot. On the sidewalks, but if you go down to Cos Cob, but not immediately there. Same thing with Pet Pantry. Pet Pantry.
Just go out and walk on down.
So I'm commenting as to the market. I think that's really for my client to decide as to if there is a market.
I agree with you.
But not everybody has children. Not everybody has pets.
Got it.
There are people that want to live in apartments like this and work in Greenwich.
I would rather have you address it when you come back. You guys take it through and
But I just want to make
address
that clear. I also want to make clear, too, that this is a commercially zoned lot. You could build, as of right, a 14,000 square foot building for commercial purposes and have retail in there or auto parts or whatever it is. We thought when we looked at this property,
The
first of all,
23,000 was
it fit
better.
right into 6-110 as far as what the intent was. And you talked about it before, and Old Greenwich Association talked about it, Riverside Association talked about it when it came to 143 Sound Beach Avenue, which is, why can't it be on the post road? That's much better. You've got public transportation, you've got easy access to schools, other things like that. Why do you have to have it down in our village? So I think the intent was, and it was voiced by you folks many times, that the post road is a perfect place for development like this. And I have to think, when your task force was looking at various places to put affordable housing or moderate income housing on the post road, they looked specifically at this zone because it's an LB zone, it's fairly unique, and this is a house that has been there for God knows how long, and it certainly is unusual to have a single-family home like that put in a commercial zone that's so built up like this is. We thought by eliminating the retail use, the commercial use, and making it purely residential, that it would be greeted well by the Riverside Association and the people of Riverside. We also think that we can design something that will be very appealing when you get off exit 5 that says, welcome to Greenwich, welcome to Riverside, much more than what exists now in that location generally. So we can do that, and we want to work with you to do that and get to that spot.
Perfect.
All right?
That's what I wanted to hear you say.
So with that in mind, we'd hope to at least be able to go forward to make a final application. As I said, the neighbors may not know this. We didn't have to file for preliminary. We could have gone straight to final and made that application. We didn't want to because we wanted your input. We wanted the ARC's input, which we got. We wanted the neighbors' input, which we've gotten. So now we're in a situation where we can take all that information and spend a lot of money coming up with something that hopefully will address a lot of these issues.
Gotcha.
All right.
Okay. All right.
So thank you for all the time you spent on this.
Commissioners, any comments before we go on? Victoria, you look like you're thinking about something. Mr. Levy, do you want to share anything? No. That's what people say when you're talking in school. Would you like to share that with us?
Nick and I were commiserating. We were just thinking about the green space and how you really could create quite a bit more green space in the front.
You do so, though, at your peril, because it's interesting because one of the speakers from Neil Lane was talking about why can't you...
The setback in the rear, which is what the answer was.
Right.
That's the problem.
One person mentioned having more landscape in the front, too.
Okay, hold on. Levy is saying no.
I think that the drop-off area could be underneath the building, and you could even pop out the center bay and come forward a couple of feet. And I think that would create a much nicer entrance and much more private feeling about coming into this property. And you could create a one of the things that you don't have here is a base yet, but by bringing by creating more of like a loggia effect in the front, that's a drop-off area, it might help solve your problem.
Okay.
So I think that that's something you should look into. So really what it means is you're reorganizing your entrance lobby, pushing it back just a little bit to accommodate a car drop-off area underneath the building. Bring that central bay up just a few feet, and you might really have something there.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
Okay, Nate, and if you're open to it, we'll suggest it to you in writing.
That's fine. Yep.
All right, anybody else? We're good?
I don't know.
Okay, so we'll close this item. And I'm not clear, maybe the commission could tuck me into it, but I think I want to hold off. I want to keep mulling on this a little bit. So I don't think I want to
agree.
decide
I
it
don't-
tonight. Okay.
No decision tonight. I've got a list of things I need to wrap my head around.
I just want to choose some more on what else we would give you in terms of feedback.
We anticipated that, so that's fine. Thank you.
All right, okay. So for our next application, if we have, we have 240 GA LLC. Good evening, Mr. Tessie.
Mr. Bristol.
Mr. Bristol?
You were late.
240 GA LLC.
Correct.
For a final site plan and special permit at 240 Greenwich Avenue. You've given us all the information that we require. Does anybody on the commission have any questions on this application? I hate to do this, you just have to be standing here.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, commissioners,
He likes that.
does anybody have any
I'll take it.
questions on 240?
No.
Any comments on 240?
You were there yesterday, right?
Okay. That being the case, we'll close 240.
Easy enough?
Okay, any public comment on 240 GA, Greenwich Avenue? No. What? No public comment.
Okay.
On 240 Greenwich Avenue? Okay. All right, so in that case, that ends the public, well, we just finished the public hearing. That ends the public hearing.
We're done.
We're done, except I'm going to make this resolution now. Goss is no longer seated because you took it, right? And Yeski seated for Hardman.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to do 240 GA right now?
Yep.
Okay, 240 GA for a final site plan and special permit. I hereby move approval of this application. In so doing, the commission notes that there will be no change in the amount of square footage in the CGB. The CGBR has a net reduction of office space of 3576 and a new reflecting infill of 2366 square feet and a new retail use of 5,941 feet. The ZEO has requested that the FAR be confirmed. The sewer department has requested confirmation that there is of any changes in the flow calculations. Should the sewer department have a problem with the flow calculations, the applicant shall return with revisions. ARC and HDC are not involved in this as there is no exterior alteration, and the Conservation Department does not comment on this. The commission notes that the parking for this application is non-conforming and that the non-conformity is being reduced with a net reduction in office space by a net of 14 spaces. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we have anything else to decide tonight? We have one other one, the Field Club. Nick? I have it here too, if you want to. I know you're ready.
Application PLPZ 2019-496 and 497, final site plan special permit at 276 Lake Avenue in the R2 zone. Motion to approve application. Whereas the applicant has provided previous application, which was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on by the letter dated 7/29/14. The applicant has returned to the ARC and received endorsement, subject to actually returning to the ARC with construction documents. The applicant has provided additional information to the sewer division concerning flows on the site. The project is similar in the same regards as to the project that was reviewed back in 2014. Motion to approve with these conditions is that all of the conditions that are provided in the 7/29/14 approval letter are carried over to this new approval. Understanding that the new landscaping to replace the old landscaping plan, the applicant has requested and received approval to provide for lighting on the north side of the project for code compliant egress lighting. The applicant shall return to the ARC for
And it's motion.
lighting on motion detectors. Applicant will return to ARC with conducts and with the understanding that they should be addressing in their comments from the most recent ARC meeting. That the parking in, I want to make sure I got the right parking lot, Andy, was.
They showed it on the site plan, so you're good.
Okay, so that's good to go.
The parking has been modified according to the commission's request and is demonstrated on the most recent site plan.
Okay, and specific notice that according to the previous approval from 7/29/14 concerning noise levels and events.
All conditions from the 2014 approval continue to apply to this application.
That's what I said. Okay.
And the sewer? Did you talk about the flows?
Yes, we talked about the flows. Do we want to add in that they be providing
If there's a problem with the flow calculations that have been provided to the sewer department, the applicant shall revise as necessary and return to the commission if necessary.
return to the commission or
It depends on what they have to do. My guess is nothing, but if.
Would you say he's got to satisfy sewers prior to zoning permit?
There you go.
No, I would do building permit.
Building permit.
Building permit, fine, very good.
That's a requirement anyway.
Yes. Okay,
Okay.
that's good.
All in favor? I'm sorry, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is.
Okay, we're done.
Man, far cry from last time.
What happened to all that stuff we had to do?